Afternoon, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, back down here at the Pathfinder Outdoor Classroom. What I'm doing today is I've been doing some cleanup and repair work on this GLOGAUS Alcohol Stove that was made somewhere between 1904 and 1913. And I'm going to put this in our series of Woodsman's gear of the 20th century because it's a very early example of 20th century camp cookware that you could carry. And alcohol stoves have been made since the late 1800s in pocket stove type configurations. However, this was one of the early models of a camp stove that you could actually take with you if you were solo camping or something like that to heat your water if you didn't want to make a fire, or cook food on if you didn't want to make a fire. And the reason I'm jumping back into this and kind of cleaning up some of this older stuff, I bought this in unknown condition. In other words, the person I bought it from didn't know if it worked or not. They had picked it up somewhere else. And I said, well, I'll take a chance on it. It can't be that tough to fix. It's an alcohol stove. But I'm sponsoring a camp out here at the end of October with a group of guys from traditional camp crafters with Sean Dyer. And there's some guys coming here from a Facebook group called the Bannerman's Camp, as well as James Bender, well known on YouTube for his hobo series he's working on right now. And I greatly respect that series because he's done a lot of research in that 1930s hobo era. So if you haven't checked him out for some reason, you definitely should go check out James Bender's channel. It's Waypoint Survival is the name of the channel. He's also going to be here at that squirrel camp. We're going to be reenacting a early 1900s, 1890 to 1930 camp configuration and squirrel camp. And that's what we're going to do for that weekend. So I'm kind of getting some gear together for that because I haven't done any reenacting since my days of reenacting in the 18th century, really. And so this is new to me as far as getting the gear and things like that together. Although I have a lot of vintage stuff already as I was going through my collection of whatnots, I have a ton of the gear already. And this piece is something that I bought new, and I wanted to share with you today how it works. Stay with me. We're gonna look at it in here in the classroom, and I'm gonna get it lit so you can see the jets where it's not out in the sunlight. Then we'll probably take it out in the sunlight to boil some water. I have a nice little steel pot here that I've already got water put into. The lid fits really tight on this thing. And we're gonna boil some water in that pot so that we could drink some coffee out of our steel cup, all right? So let's set this aside for a minute and talk about the stove. So the way this works is the tank holds alcohol and it has a wick in it. And this area right here, it wicks alcohol up into here by the fumes. You have a small wick right here that goes into the tank. And if you look at this and you take this off, there's a wick in there and this is the tank you fill. And then you tuck that wick back down inside and you light that wick. And once you light that wick, you turn it to the side so that it is underneath that alcohol burner and heating up that burner to make it jet. Kind of like priming a stove today. Sometimes we think that we have the best methods of doing things. And while this is not as compact as today's stoves, from what I've found so far, it works exceptionally well. And that's why I'm doing it kind of live. I want you to see how fast this thing actually gets running and jets up before we start to use it. Now, like any other alcohol stove, this is very susceptible to wind and things like that. Tuck this just a little further underneath that burner. And I don't know what they used for screens, wind screens back then. I suspect they just put something around it to keep the wind from blowing it out. You can see it's already starting to jet through the top now, and the sides are starting to jet as well. Now, once the stove jets, you can rotate that out of the way and extinguish it with this small cap. Just placing it on there like that and then rotate it back to the side. And your stove is ready to rock and roll. And you can see that thing's jetting like crazy. So it's not gonna get hot underneath here because it's got a stand and it's also got a handle. You can pick it up and move it around if you want to. So I think what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and take this pot and put it on here. We do have some wind affecting it, so I can see some wind blowing from the side. So what I'm probably gonna do is set something right there to kind of block the wind, act as a windbreak, and we'll see how long it takes for that bad boy to boil that water. Now I've put just a regular alcohol stove windscreen around this thing just to kind of keep the wind at bay. It's kind of blowing in here today. And I put the lid on here. Obviously that's gonna make it boil a little faster. Now, just like today, they had different materials for cookware back then. We have a steel pot on the fire right now. It's gonna take a little longer for that to heat up than it would take something like this tin pot. And this tin pot's got butterfly handles on it. Again, you know, you'd think that things like this are new. This is from the early 1900s or late 1800s, okay? And it's just a tin pot. You can see it's lined in here with tin solder. So it's just a sheet metal pot, basically, with a lid, with handles. And this thing would heat up quite a bit faster than the steel would if you're going to cook in it, okay? I wouldn't suggest that today. You not know if that solder in there may have lead in it, so I wouldn't cook in this today. However, the steel one is no problem. All right, look at that, on the boil. It has been right at probably 5 minutes if I had to guess. Looking at my watch, it was about 10 after, and now it's about 16 after. Messing around with the windscreen, things like that. That's pretty good even for an alcohol stove today, let alone an antique one of this age. And when you're done, you just blow the thing out, and it's a done deal. So I gotta tell you guys, this is a pretty neat little stove. Still pretty hot there. Honestly, for what I paid for this, you couldn't buy a lot of alcohol stoves today. And I didn't really do anything to it other than taking a sail needle and making sure that all of the jets were clear of any soot or carbon or anything like that that may have burned into them or any corrosion that may have happened to them over time. Now, obviously, you can't fold this stove up, but it is very, very small. It could easily be put into some type of a bag or a box or something like that and carried into camp. But it is a very neat piece of history. A very cool piece to have in your collection and an awesome piece to use in a period camp. Guys, I appreciate you joining me for this video today on this antique alcohol stove. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.